First of all, I'd like to thank the UCLA Chicano Studies Resource Center, the faculty, staff, students, and community for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. We're especially grateful to Rebecca Epstein for facilitating this panel, Lowriting, Shots, Rights, and Stories from the Chicano Soul. By implication, and through its very existence, Chicana Studies is revolutionary, feminist, indigenous, unapologetic, counter-hegemonic, anti-imperialist, and grounded in the community, by, for, and about the people. The essence of Chicanismo and Chicanisma is first and foremost a defined and assertive ideology created to disrupt, dismantle, and challenge Eurocentric, colonial, patriarchal, and other narratives, while serving as a bridge towards self-determination by any means necessary. Dr. Rodolfo Acuña is fond of saying often que una mano no se lava sola, and at its root, this is how lowriting came to be. It is a collaboration between Chicanas and Chicanos who met on social media, namely through Twitter, who were disenchanted with the direction of some of our Chicano studies departments throughout the country, who became so institutionalized within the ivory tower that they have completely forgot about the struggle. At the same time, some of our nationally recognized Chicano and Chicano civil rights organizations have been concerned more with being more patriotic and more American than the Tea Party itself. Instead of challenging racism and sexism, it was our conclusion then that we were worse off today than in 1943 or even 1968. Then the struggle in Tucson Unified School District intensified, resulting in the banning not of ethnic studies, but of Chicano studies, which was attacked. Santino Rivera then approached some of us who were on Chicano and Chicana Twitter with the idea of challenging those who would ban books and whitewash our history. Ban This, the BSP Anthology of Chicano Literature, was born. As a weapon of mass education, Ban This was our generation's message to Aztlan. It is a raw collection of new up-and-coming Chicano poets, writers that would probably never be given the date of light by corporate or university publishing houses. Yet, imbued with the legacies of self-determination and community control, Santino, through his Broken Sword Publishing, provided the platform where many of us could say ya basta, while many remained silent and acquiesced to the assault that was taking place in our community. With the success of Ban This, several ideas were discussed for future Chicano and Chicano publications. It was at this time that Art Meza, aka Chicano Soul, who's sitting here on my right, began capturing classic cars through the tiny lens of an iPhone camera, and he began sharing his work with family and close friends. Inspired by the positive feedback he received, he upgraded his camera, and in turn, the seeds for lowriting were planted. By combining the cultural aesthetic of the lowrider through photographs with real Chicana and Chicano stories, poems, and experiences, lowriting was not some anthropological study or some nostalgic ride to the past. Rather, lowriting captured the vibrancy of community and familial survival and resistance at the most common level, that of our community. So without further delay, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you some of our contributors to lowriting: Robert Flores, Art Meza, Santino Rivera, Luis Rodriguez, Viva Flores, Tara Yvonne Trudell, and Noel Reyes, and Emilio Medina. The format for today's panel will be that of a plática. We want to engage you as well in the audience. So we're going to imagine ourselves enjoying some beautiful company, delicious food, and some drinks, and some conscientious dialogue wherein the voices of our guests will take center stage rather than that of the facilitator himself, being me. So throughout this plática, I'll kind of momentarily intervene to ask some of you to expand on one of your ideas or to read one of your pieces. So we're going to take a low and slow journey to the world of the Chicana and Chicano lowrider. So welcome again. I wanted just to begin this conversation by asking Santino Rivera, why lowriting now? Why is it important for us to have a book of people who would normally not be accepted in the universities, publishing houses, or corporate houses? Why is lowriting important, especially in light of the attacks on Chicano and Chicana studies?
The book was born out of really necessity, because through my research and the project, we discovered that nothing like this exists. This kind of book hasn't been done before, and I was kind of blown away through looking through mainstream bookstores or Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you look up lowriders, you'll find historical accounts of the history, but from a very mechanical point of view, or you'll find photography books, but again, very stiff kind of photos, basically just like documenting them. There were no accounts of the culture, the stories, the people behind the cars, behind the culture, and I thought that was really strange, because lowriders in popular culture, especially in the mainstream, are everywhere. They're in films, they're in music videos, they're in commercials. You see them all over the place, but they're very superficial in their presentation, and you never get to hear anything about the people that build them, ride them, love them. So what I do with my publishing company is I try and speak to things that don't have a voice. And these days, which has been an ongoing saga for Chicanos and Chicanas, is we often lack a voice of our own. We either get framed by Hollywood or by corporations, by the media especially, with negative connotations and negative images, and you hardly ever see anything positive come from that. And it really freaked me out that this hadn't been attempted before. Just as David spoke about Ban This, which I published, which was a book, an anthology of Chicano literature, that had never been attempted either. You can find a lot of Latino anthologies of literature, but a specific Chicano one, those were very hard to find, either way out of print or just simply didn't exist. So it dawned on me that if they were going to ban our books, we needed to create new ones and to keep pushing and to keep fighting back. And lowriting was a way to continue that. As you can see behind me, Art's images, he has a natural eye. He lacks any formal training in photography whatsoever. He didn't take any classes. He didn't have a mentor. Everything that you see on there is self-taught, which is amazing. I mean, his images automatically speak to anyone who sees them. And I saw that, and we had talked and said, wouldn't it be cool to, kind of pair these with some stories or some poems, and kind of get into the details behind them. And the idea blossomed from there, and I had put out the call for submissions on my website and social media from coast to coast. And just like Ban This, submissions poured in from all over. Had a strong showing from Southern California, New Mexico, and Texas. And the book came together very organically. It's a beautiful book. We're here today with you through a very grassroots effort. We don't have the support of mainstream press, mainstream media. This stuff kind of flies under the radar because it is about our self-determination. It is very in your face and defiant. You won't find books like this in Barnes and Noble or your mainstream bookstores. But here we are. I mean, from coast to coast, we have a representation here, and we have Luis J. Rodriguez who lent his voice to this book. And all that was accomplished through, grassroots raza people power, which is a testament to, the movement continuing. So I think now more than ever there is a need for us to take our own power back, to take our self-determination, and to keep pushing the boundaries, because a lot of people have dropped the ball, and a lot of what was accomplished has either been swept under the rug, forgotten, banned, or it's been co-opted by corporations and by companies that now want to make a profit off it, and they want to frame it their own way. So I think this book, doing stuff like this is important because it's important to take our own power and our own voice back and have control of it to keep the movement alive.
Awesome. Some of the panelists that you see up here are community activists, community workers, poets, right? And so I want to make sure that you get a full introduction of each and every one of them. So Santino Rivera, I wanted him to speak first. He is an author, publisher of Broken Swords publication. He is originally from Denver, Colorado, and has published several editions, Josh Devine's Ducktown, and of course 2003's the BSP of Anthology of Chicana and Chicana Literature, and of course Lowriting. And he has an upcoming book with my friend Robert Flores, who will discuss a little bit about that journey that he's taken. Robert Flores is from Santana, lives in Santana, drinks in Santana, and is a Juaneño Indian. And Art Meza, he's the power behind the imagery that you see here. There's a third generation Chicano, the photographer behind this. He has the essence, the aesthetic of what is Chicano Soul, and he will describe a little bit about what he means by that. Of course, you might have heard of Luis Rodriguez. He has published about 15 books of poetry, novels, short stories, nonfiction, and children's literature. He's well known for his book, Always Running, La Vida Loca, Gang Days in LA, a very classic book. He's also one of the founders of La Tia Chucha Press. And we have also as well with us, Noel Reyes is a Los Angeles native living her Chicana dream, currently working at Mi Vida Boutique in Highland Park. And she can be found at Instagram at Noel Reyes. We also have Tara Yvonne Trudeau, is a mother of 4, and just recently graduated with a BFA in Media Arts with an emphasis in film, audio, and photography. And important for us to understand that through her work there's a lot of fearlessness of spirit dedicated to the love of earth. We also have Viva Flores. She's from El Paso, Texas, and has been published in Tolteca Scene, as well as the queer people of color blog called Black Girl Dangerous. And finally, Emilio Medina. If you notice the cover, he's responsible for the creative graphic design that we have here. He is graphic designer for Moody Creative Design Studio based in LA, and is always keeping busy with art and design, as well as taking projects geared towards education as well as social activism. So Art, I wanted to ask you a question about the definition behind Chicano Soul and how you attribute that to merging the world of the lowrider with the eye of the photographer. How do we merge both worlds?
Well, I think the responsibility I have is, well, I don't know if I color it, documenting our culture. You know, you can't leave it up to anybody else to document your culture the way you think is right. Hollywood is not going to do it. You know, it's up to you. What comes with a name like Chicano Soul is the responsibility to show, you know, to be honest, but to document it, you know, in the right way. And you know, the more people I meet, the more stories I come across, the more friends I make. It's a lot of fun doing what I do. This project was fun, and just meeting the people afterward. But you know, a photographer friend of mine told me, you are the storyteller, you know, and just the way Santino tells stories, awesome stories, I try to do the same thing with the photos I share. You know, each photo has a story, and I hope the right one comes across. So it's been fun, yeah.
It has been fun, and I know yesterday we were at Cal State LA, and Tara Yvonne shared a wonderful poem, and I would like for us to get a glimpse at what's in Lowriting, so that, you know, we have some books for sale in the back. So Tara, if you would do us an honor not only to read, but then to share a little bit about what it took to get that work across.
Which one would you like me to share?
Cholo.
Okay.
Cholo.
Let's start it off right.
Get to it.
I'll get right to it. Ode to a Cholo, on the birth of the sixth son, to the vato who brings his brown to the surface of being Chicano, representing Mexican first. Never a question of the great lie, the big divide of Hispanic, working hard on trying to brainwash him in concrete lifestyles. Fantasy heritage breeding crazed minds, his resistance alive in canyons of nopales y ocotillo. Ode to the Cholo, taking pulse to pen, flowing words for his people, standing on street corners, handing out strong words on paper. The vato writes poetry, Xican. Ode to a Cholo, ironing board, steam pressing, Pendleton creases, calm and slow. The iron flows, steam rising, smell of tamales cooking on stove. Reliving his love for his abuelita, singing softly Los Panchos under warm breath. Ode to a Cholo, when the women pull their purses closer, passing him by with worried glances. How badass he is to smile and nod, continuing his stroll, never saying a word, never looking back. Ode to a Cholo, walking his path, fighting revolutions, leaving hearts, shedding light, his polite way keeping eyes on his brown people, never wavering Zapata's vision. Ode to a Cholo, con zafos siempre. Thank you.
What Tara or Noel or Viva, it's always seen as the image of the Chicano lowrider, and sometimes we don't see that women are also part of this. What role do Chicanas play in when you crafted this? How did you envision yourself in the lowrider cultural style?
That's a question for all three of us, right?
All three of us.
When I wrote this poem, obviously I was inspired by a Cholo and the culture or the, I grew up in East Side Oakland back in the 70s, so it was a really good time to be in that area with the raza. We had a lot of diversity. So it left a lifelong impression on me. And to be honest, when I moved to New Mexico when I was 12 or 13, I was stunned by the lack of Mexicans, even though everybody's Mexican, but nobody wanted to be Mexican. And so it messed with me in my young teenage mind of being about 13. So when I went back to school 4 years ago, one of the first classes I took was an ethics studies class, just to kind of, figure some things out on my own. And then after that, I had a really strong bearing of, it's like going back to the past and reclaiming that. There is nothing wrong to live in inner cities and have a sense of pride for who you are and where you come from, but I can see how society messes us up. And there's a line in there called about fantasy heritage. And I learned about that, and I think it was one of the Chicano 500 Years of Chicano History book. There's a little piece about that, and it made sense to me. It's when you live in people were ashamed to be Mexican, so they wanted to be Spanish. They wanted to be more Spanish than Mexican. And I didn't want my children, and I didn't want to represent myself as that, so I had to go back to the beginning. And so I went back to the way I grew up, and the people I was around. I lived in a place in East Side Oakland called Jingotown. It was on the other side of the tracks. And we ran the neighborhood, and we grew up with a sense of freedom. And I never thought of it as a bad time or a time to be ashamed of until I found myself around certain people that did. So in a way, it's like kind of standing ground about who we are and who I am. And one thing about Santino's and Art's book with bringing us all together and having these images, I have two sons, and a few years ago I said, I'm going to get them a Lowriting magazine because I grew up on those and I want them to see it. They couldn't see the pictures because of the women that are in front of the cars. And my young son was like, Mom, they're in the way. I'm like, yeah, they are. And it just made me really sad that this is how they're portraying our history. And I lived in Oakland when we used to go to lowriding shows. They were at the Oakland Coliseum, and there were like 3 levels of lowriders, and it was a family event. It's how I grew up, and so me going back and claiming that has made me a better mother, has made me a stronger woman, and I'm very proud to be Retro Raza and representing the love I have for my people. and that's the men and the women and the lifestyle. So there's my answer.
I'm from El Paso, Texas, and I grew up in the Lower Valley, which is kind of like the more Raza side. Well, all of El Paso is Raza, but it's pretty much kind of far away from downtown. And I'm the youngest of 3 big brothers, and so actually I wasn't allowed to play with cholos or hang out with cholos. I had very strict first generation parents, and I was always reading books. I've always been spent my summers in the library, and I was the little nerd walking through the barrio with my backpack, and the cholos siempre me cuidaban. I wasn't a chola. I always admired the chola girls. They would fight with them. They'd be like wearing this makeup, and they would be like so brave, and I wasn't one of those, but they loved me. Y siempre me cuidaban, and they took care of me. Several times that I was walking home or needed anything, this is a different idea. Es una dignidad that is very misconstrued in America. These men have corazones that they're diamonds, you know. Not all of not because there's a lot going on there, and obviously it's a very complicated area. But there's something there, and there's a dignity, and there's a beauty, and I always wished to be a part of it, but I wasn't really allowed to. I was always kind of alienated from Cholo culture, while at the same time right in there, and I was part of the neighborhood too. And I the story beer run that's in this anthology is about me sitting on on outside my parents' house, on top of my brother's car, and just watching the cars go by and watching the neighborhood go by, because I wasn't really allowed to be running around. So I feel very much a part of this culture as a Chicana poet, and I feel the same level of pride and dignity just listening to Tara, just being here with Luis Rodriguez and everyone here. We all share this amazing dignity and pride in our culture that many times is very misunderstood in other places. So I just wanted to share, and my story is very it's almost crude. I don't know if I want to say crude, but it's rough, it's raw, and I've written it. You know, it happened to me when I was 20, and I wrote it down at a community college class when I was 26, and I've written it over so many times, and it finally landed somewhere when I was 33. These stories are, you know, years in the making, and this particular story, one time I tried to take out all of the profanity. I tried to clean it up because I was trying to submit it to a class, and a professor didn't like it, told me I should rewrite it, and it lost its essence. I sent it to another mentor, and he said, look, bottom line, this used to be something else. Now it looks like some grad student came in and did house cleaning on it, and that's not what we want. It used to be raw. So I went back to it, pulled out the manuscript, and pulled it out again, and there's something to that. It's basically saying, I don't want to have to edit myself. I want to be me. I think if I write a poem and then I edit it and then I show it to a PhD and then they tell me that there's a space here and then this, when people read it, is that me? Is it? You know, and then, so I feel that we've kind of gone away from what was the original spirit of this genre, which was rebellion and not having to ask for permission, you know. So sorry, I just kind of went out, but no, these stories are, I mean, these stories happen to us. They're not made up. I didn't, you know, just say, oh, this is an anthology on lowriting, you know, I'm just gonna throw this, you know, it's actually something that we experience, and I think that's what makes all the difference in literature.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. It's like a day off for me. I get to make cookies from everything. Someone asked me recently what were my first recollections of art, and I had never thought of that before. And my answer was all the things that I saw growing up, and those things are liquor store murals, statues in the church, lowriders on the street, anything on the street, and that's where all of my first visions of art live. And to me, lowriders aren't, I don't necessarily go off with an arrow to cholos. I think it's just part of being a Chicana. My mother used to talk about car clubs, and she wasn't a chola. My uncle had albums that he considered lowrider albums, but he wasn't a cholo. So it just represents, you know, all the years of knowledge, you know, that are starting from you, and then you go backwards, you know, and cars are a big part of that. And being a female, it isn't exactly just about the car, you know, it's about other things. And when Art told me about the idea for this book, I just thought that was the coolest thing ever, because it combined all of these things that I love as a female, cars, cholos, writing, you know, imagery, and I had to be part of it. So I've been writing since I was in the 4th grade, but I never let anybody look at it. I just moved for the last 3 days, and I found a crate of books that I've handwritten. I don't even know what to do with them. But when Art came to me with this idea, I thought, you know, okay, it has to be about lowriders. So there was only 2 sentences I had ever written in my journal about lowriders, and it was because of a guy, and I just took it and started from there. And it became my first complete finished poem, which to me is amazing in itself, because I have books and books of unfinished stuff. So I'm very happy to be part of this, and I think it's great because my what I spend all of my hard work on is building community, and this book really, it's just amazing. I mean, and again, the Twitter and the Facebook and the Instagram, I mean, those are just all such awesome tools for my generation. I never thought that Facebook or Instagram would help me build what I'm doing now and continuing building my dream. So this is just like an amazing book, and I'm so proud to have showcased it at our shop and all the people that it brought and the energy. And I think it's wonderful, and the bottom line is, I mean, we come from a culture of storytellers, and I'm not a writer. I just know how to tell a good story, and if it's just in my own book, in my own head, whatever, someday it'll become more, and that's what it's about, is just speaking the truth and carrying it on and continuing it and working together and finding ways to find other people that believe in what you do and have the same passions. And I mean, this can just go so far, and I just wish that for my community and for other Chicanos and Chicanas like everywhere in the world.
Would you be so kind to share your piece
Yeah.
with us?
I was thinking the same. My piece is called Princess Pachuca. Otra vez, another boda. With a family this large, it seemed like there was one every other month. Paper flower making time, handmade streamers for the wedding lowrider parade of candy cars. She loved helping her ma and tias To hear their comadre sessions was better than anything on TV. She loved creating. It sent her into major daydreamer time. Each fold her little fingers made to the tissue paper was a wish. Back and forth, over and over. Little lady hands working hard to manifest her dreams. Prayers to keep her focus. She didn't want to be married. She didn't dream of a big, poofy lace dress. There was no need to be distracted by anyone's glitter flake. No beachy prince was gonna come for her in a lowrider. She wanted to create her own pinstripe paradise, creating luscious lace airbrush patterns and twirling around the city, the queen of her own universe. No vatos allowed. And this was her prayer. Gonzafos, with respect, guard this heart. Branded corazon, message to all insults will be spit back. Sincere warning, powerful energy, bursting passion, all threats reversed. Don't mess with this love, forbidden to touch unless it's real.
Amazing, beautiful poem. Emilio, you're the creative force behind putting the cover for Lowriting and as well as Bandits, right?
No, that's
That's
someone else.
Yeah.
That's good.
But Josh?
Josh, right? Muy creative design. So I wanted just to ask you, what are some of the challenges that you face as a like almost independent graphic designer and trying to merge, you know, your work with the social activism that you talk about?
The greatest challenge is dealing with Santino. No. He's a good guy. It's funny, like, I'm here and I'm part of this panel and I'm very honored, very grateful. And I had all these note cards written down, and it doesn't really matter. I don't really need it because I feel like I'm here with a lot of good people. But to answer your question, it's some of the challenges, you know, the challenge again is like, what, repeat that again, please.
Well, you know, just this whole idea of, you know, we're talking about having community control over our direction, you know, economic, political, and social and cultural. How does your Muy Creative Design company meet those challenges in order to merge it with what is the idea behind the book, which is, you know, social activism, community activism?
Since I really think about it, you know, say when I was brought onto this project, it was more like, you know, help develop a cover that, let's see, I just wanted to be part of it to, I'm not really know if we're speaking, I'm sorry.
Take your time.
All right, I'm
Tweet it.
Tweet it, let's
Just tweet it.
Yes,
Yes,
40 characters.
If this was a tweet, I'd be all over it. I've already been like 10 tweets into the whole thing.
What inspired you, you know,
The whole look and
the whole look and the whole aesthetic?
Oh, well, I was given, the challenge was to, you know, work around arts photography. Not that it's a challenge, no, because, I mean, the thing by itself, it's so beautiful. And it's really what I wanted to do was to create a font that complements it, not overpowers it, but like I said, just complement it and work with it. And that's what I think I was able to do, because really it's such a, he has such a good eye for this, man. I like seeing how your stuff has evolved in through Instagram and tweets and everything. It's just been a real honor to work with it.
You worked really hard on the font, and
it had to be drawn out. I mean, I didn't want to just go with something that was typical to some kind of old English font. And we know we've all seen like Lowrider magazine font, and
that's what I thought. I think you submitted to me one that looked like the Lowrider magazine, and I said, we don't want to do that.
No, we don't want to do that. Right,
direction.
right. So, I mean, that was the real challenge in coming up with it.
You hand drew the skull on the
I created
back.
the font and just stretched it. I just brought all in vectors. All started off as hand drawn, and we worked with from there, and just several revisions of tweets and tweaks. tweaks. Oh, I get those words confused, right? But yeah, I'm really happy how it turned out, and you know, and a lot of the fun process was dealing with you and Art to finally come up with this final product, you know, and it's something that would hopefully be eye-catching, be recognizable, for people to see.
All three of us talked. You did a really good job on the color too, which is Chicano and Chicana brown, and art. And all three of us, we talked about the color. The original design that we had come up with was blue.
Right.
And I knew that this book was going to be appealing to people from all over, particularly Southern California and Northern California, and because of the connotations sometimes between blue and red. And the boundaries there, I didn't want to make the book one or the other. I wanted to have a universal appeal, so we chose the Chicano Brown, and I think you did a beautiful job on it. It's a very striking book. I mean, his photographs, Emilio's very humble, but designing a book cover is probably the most important aspect of a book, believe it or not. The authors will tell you otherwise because we write the insides of it, but if you don't have a good cover, if you don't have something striking and eye-catching and that is sleek and neat, it just completely, people will gloss right over it, and I mean, you did a really good job in design. I mean, it's a beautiful book. So, you should definitely be proud. We talked about the background image. I don't know if you remember. We had a few ideas.
Right, we had a deal because we want to incorporate arts. You can barely see it, but this is like a shot from Chicano Park.
It's Chicano Park on the bottom.
They went down there, and it was just one of those things where, like, well, how do you still recognize that and not maybe overpowering, because you're dealing with a lot of little elements in there of text and imagery, and so all we can really do is blur it out, but it's still represented in there pretty well, and people that have been there and know where it's at, will recognize it, I think, right away. So that was probably a real, difficult.
And I had asked you to put a skull. I asked him to put a skull on the back.
And I'll be honest with you, on that whole skull thing, man. No. Initially, what I did, and I'm not gonna lie, is say, how's he gonna know, man? I'm gonna find some clip art, and I did go that direction, but he recognized it right away. He called me on it. And so no, bro, I want your juice. You gotta render it out and. Right. So
I told you I wanted it.
So no pressure there, man. So it's like, and that's what I did, and I think that turned out for the best. And I think, and I had fun doing it because this guy was able to push me to a different, beyond what my comfort zone and go beyond it and take it further. And for that, I'm always grateful. And I hope there's more things in the future. And I feel blessed to be around these great minds and these artists and creative people and. Or so activists. I mean, if anything, it's taught me a lot about myself and be a little more. It's one thing to be what do you call them, the couch activists? But they just tweet away and they just say a lot of things.
Armchair revolutionary. Right?
Come on, armchair revolutionary. You can't do that. I mean, you got to get out there and take part. I mean, even if your politics agree with it or don't agree with it, show up. I remember on October 1st of 2011, I showed up for Occupy LA. I don't know if you were there or not, but it was. Whether you believed in it or not, again, with me, it had more to do with not to be an armchair activist. Go out there, show up, and if it's something you want to jive with, just go back to your armchair. But I still stayed on top of it, and then that came and went, and now here we are, 2014, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of roads ahead of us, and we just had an election, and we all saw how that went. For better or for worse for some people, but back to this, what this project has taught me is, is again to go out there, put yourself out there, and express yourself, and don't just say, walk the walk along with it.
Having you, included in helping design the book, is in line with the rest of the mission of the book as far as being an independent artist, independent Chicano artist at that.
Right. And
lending your talents to something, like I said, that is not mainstream, that is not backed by, $1 million budget, or that has a publicist, or, it doesn't have any of that. It is all very.
We are, yeah. We have to be that. We have to. We're watching out for ourselves. We have to put it out there, one tweet at a time, and it's like a. That's like the foundation of this whole thing, and that's how I met all you guys, and it's still going strong. I haven't unfriended and followed anyone here. Yeah. Yeah. But it's been great, and like I said, it's like I'm always looking forward to the next day. Just start talking smack, and I feel great about it, and I thank you again for allowing me to be part of this.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm saving Luis because I want to make sure that he puts in context everything that all of our poets have sort of stated. But I wanted to ask Robert a little bit about his battle, his journey, and then the title of your piece here is "Take a Little Trip with Me." So I was hoping that you can give us a little journey as to the battle that you really have faced, and how that has created the persona that we find in this piece. I know this was when you were 16 years old, right?
Right.
And
right.
so,
It's
but
all true.
where were you at 16, and if you can kind of guide us to where you're at now, because this is something that I think we need to hear.
Well, let me talk about what we've been, the tweeting part. When this all started, all we would talk about back in the day were crocodiles and the Raiders against the Broncos, right? And then I got diagnosed with colon cancer. I had stage 4 colon cancer, and almost immediately, this community here just surrounded me and supported me, just even to this day. And the support I got, not just from my friends, family, and then my friends here, was just amazing. So that's where I kind of want to start with that. And it's still, like I said, tomorrow we'll tweet about other stuff, and it continues. So that's where that's been my most recent battle, and thank God I pretty much won. Kicked its ass.
Yeah.
So. And it doesn't end, with when they tell you you don't have cancer anymore, because it's just every day, and I support so many other people that I've met through, Tumblr and stuff. It's just, it's never going to end with me, until this damn disease hopefully is eradicated. But going back to like when I was a kid, I'm like I said, I think I heard the word nerd already once here. I was the nerd like in 1975, going to Catholic school, in the band, total nerd, but I had a lowrider. I drove a lowrider, I played in a band that was, like played at the backyard parties, weddings, whatever. And I was 16. I was just a kid, but the band was a lowrider band. It was a car club band, so we played at the car club dances. And that was, to me, normal, that's what I did, I mean, I don't know, you go to Catholic school, but the point of my piece is that I went from a 99% Chicano grade school to this Catholic school in, Santana, which was like 98% white, and there was a big, whoa, where am I, and it goes both ways, because they're like, they hadn't really related, the only, brown people in their life were, and I could tell from the way they talked to me, was either the gardener or the maid, so, that's how life was, but that's why I said, well, I think I have a story to tell, so I told it, and that's the piece that I wrote about.
If you don't mind reading it for us.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right. Take a little trip with me. I am 16 years old. It's 1975 and I drive a lowrider. It's a 1968 VW painted with 3 shades of brown. I have that stenciled on the rear side windows, shades of brown. It has more speakers than I need and a little white steering wheel. The city I live in is rife with gangs and car clubs, but I don't roll like that. Soy nerd con cuatro ojos. I am 16 years old and I play the sax, and I drive a lowrider. I play in every band at my high school, marching, jazz, orchestra, and I also play on weekends in a band called Suave, like the car club that the rest of the band is in. We play for the car club dances, weddings, quinceañeras, you name it. We play oldies and the new stuff for that day, War, Earth, Wind & Fire, Tower Power. After school one day, this friend comes up to me. Robert, this dude is looking for you. I think he wants to kick your ass. Orale. His name is Bobby Colleen and he's driving a 1953 Ford Primer Green Mas Feo. He asked me to be in his band, Suave. Sure, and get paid? Hell yeah. I'm 16 years old and I go to Catholic school and I drive a lowrider. My high school is 90% white, 8% brown, and 2% who gives a fuck. My grade school was almost all Latino, so this situation is a little strange for both the gabachos and us brownies. They think we're all in gangs or gardeners. Well, some of them do. They dig the lowrider. What choice do they have? Or I'll get my gang on you. We do get along, we party, cruising the streets of Santana. Good times. The city is divided into at least 4 different gang territories. F Troop, Dogtown, Delhi Aces, and Santa Anita. Now I have friends in all these territories, so I have to be careful when I cruise around town. Once a friend who lived in Dogtown was at my house, and we went to go get beer. Yes, we were in high school. And this girl called him out. Where you from? Holy shit. He got in my car and said, drive, drive. I got out of there and asked him, what happened? He was all shook up. This girl asked me, where you from? And it wasn't like, hey, handsome, where you from? It was, hey, where you from, Messe? Damn. At least he bought the beer before we had a jam. I'm 54 years old now, and I drive a Toyota Tundra. But when I was 16... and that was life in 1975.
Now it's the Toyota Tundra.
That's right.
Luis, do you drive a Toyota Tundra now?
No, I'm in a Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
We're lost.
We still need to hear Viva's very powerful poem or short story, but I wanted to ask Luis a little bit about what you've heard from the young voices and some of the older voices. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about Chicano literature. I mean, you've seen, its growth. Rodolfo Anaya, Bless Mi Ultima, all the way down to people like Robert Flores, Viva, Tara, and Noel, and the emergence of the young Chicano writers. And so where do you think it's at now, and where is it headed?
Well, Chicano literature, just like lowriting cars, just like everything that's really got the same thread, asserting an existence. And to me, that's important. That's why I do literature. That's why I'm sure a lot of us do. And that's why even the lowrider culture becomes important, because it's asserting that. It goes back to the old Mexica indigenous concept of inisi in your lot, which means face and heart. That's how they would define an individual. And what it is that you have a refinement, you have a presentation of yourself, but then your heart is always there. You don't separate, it's integral. In many ways, lowriting cars are like that, the whole culture is like that. This book is like that because it's got all this beauty, well done, but it's also got a lot of heart. You know what I'm saying? And that to me is what I want to get back to, because it seems even Chicano literature is that. It's initially in your role. It's putting out there a story, it's framed well. I think Chicano writers have developed, considering that English wasn't their dominant language, have developed a great literary, work of art that's amazing, but also the heart is always there. I don't read any Chicano story that doesn't have heart. So to me, that's the beauty of it, and I guess that goes back to this. One of the other things I want to point out is that, for me, lowriting and even the Cholo culture and all that was extensive to me. It was not just the cars and the way we dress and the way we talk. It was the tattoos, which by the way were unique, that now the whole world does, but nobody knows where it came from. The black and gray fine line style was our style. We created it, now everybody does it. I've been to Europe and they're all doing black and gray, they have no idea its origins. There's lowriting cars everywhere, nobody gets the origins either. A lot of people think it's related to hip hop, though I will say that the lowriting culture is the nexus of black and brown, which is important. We work together. I remember the clubs were basically black and brown, and I remember there was always this unity there. They talk about there's no unity between black and brown, where it was in the culture. The same with the zoot suits, the same with all these urban things that we had. We came together, and hip hop was part of that because Chicanos were part of that, just like of course, the African Americans who created it, and then we all mixed in. So when you see a Snoop Dogg video and you see the lowrider cars and you see him looking like a cholo all the time and he's rapping, then you can see the nexus of black and brown. See? So to me, it's a liberating thing. For example, there are a lot of chola. I have a niece who's a chola. She's a lesbiana. She's in that culture. It's her liberation. She sees it as my chola culture liberates me. I can be a lesbiana, I can be a woman, I can be what I want to be. That to me is power. That's what really gets to me, that she made it that. Because there has been a putting down of our cultura. There has been a knocking down. Gangs, we weren't gangs, you know, but they got criminalized, you know what I'm saying? People got put in jail. People got, all the trauma got re-traumatized. The gang warfare to me was completely made up. It wasn't our thing. Now, of course, we're all into it. The drug is not our thing, but now we're all into the addict. I was a heroin addict. A lot of people I know were heroin addicts. So I saw how it came from the outside and destroyed. But here's what I think we're getting back right here. We're getting back to la palabra, which has always been what we were about. Be your word, in dice in your law. Have that face, have that heart. We're getting back to it, and that's what I think this book represents in these stories. All of that is back to that.
And you know, that's the perfect segue, because you talked about corazón, la palabra, you talked about liberation, and Viva mentioned something about her work being raw, and I think it's the most appropriate time to hear her story of coming of age, and also of what
Chico Town.
Yeah, of what Luis said, you know, of where Chicano literature is at now. There are no rules, it's unapologetic, and here's Beer Run by Viva Flores.
Wrought iron swirls adorned the windows, and there was a hastily built fence outside the small rectangular house where I grew up. Up until the time I was a teenager, the whole yard had been completely covered in grass, until my older brothers all moved away and my dad decided he didn't want to upkeep the lawn anymore. I stayed the longest of us four, like I was supposed to, but I was never expected to do any yard work. Soon after that, a cement truck rolled up the driveway and pumped smooth gray sludge all over it, making the house look like it was surrounded by an empty parking lot. Years later, when it was sweltering hot, I especially liked sitting outside on the hood of my faded white Cutlass after my parents had gone to bed. I would silently roll a joint, smoking and watching all of the late night cars park at the convenience store across the street. I'd wonder who was inside and where they were going. When I was 6, I wrote a letter to McGruff the crime dog, a cartoon bloodhound I'd see on television that was first introduced in the 80s to combat societal drug use. Similar to Smokey the Bear, McGruff was staunchly against illegal activities and substances. In the handmade construction paper card I sent him, I also made a solemn pledge to never do any drugs. 6 weeks later, I received a package in the mail filled to the brim with McGruff paraphernalia, stickers, masks, and even a small badge I wore proudly, vowing to keep the neighborhood safe. I wondered what McGruff would think of me now. Sorry, fucker. I guess I disappointed you too, I said aloud, as I pulled out a small sandwich bag filled with what my homie Redbeard called lima limon. I have always especially appreciated the moment when you're holding the marijuana bud suspended between your thumb and forefinger in joyful anticipation, and then rubbing it until it dismantles into itself, unraveling into something pliant and gentle. I like to fold the rolling paper almost in half, and then make sure the crease is sharp, lick the edge of it slowly so I can tear a little piece off. I learned that from someone somewhere along the way. It's so you don't get as much paper in your smoke. With the folded rolling paper sitting in my left hand, I'll reach over with my right and take a small pinch out of the little broken up pile and then line it smoothly along the crease until I reach that perfect thickness. The tricky part is keeping it straight, holding the tiny paper on each side with both hands so it can be rolled. I'll start to smooth it with my fingers, pressing it closer and tighter together, and then carefully twist each edge until the ends are perfectly shut. The really good rollers, they know how to make the side you light different than the edge you put between your lips. I'm not sure why I never picked up on that skill. When we first started getting high, I liked the papers that had cherries or peaches printed on them, but now I don't mind the little ones that come with packs of rolling tobacco. I like to roll them long, thin and tight, joint hanging out of my mouth, and then light the fire. A slowly revving lowrider slowly pulled into my sight. It was a ruddy-hued or maybe tan Monte Carlo. I watched blankly as it parked across the street, tires lined up against the fading curb. It took me a moment to figure out what was going on, and then I took a deep hit and held it, watching interestedly. Beer run. I've been witnessing beer runs since I was a little girl. As soon as my mother would see a car creeping up that curb with the lights off, she'd call me inside frantically and then quickly lock the door and have me run and turn off all of the lights in the house. Para que no nos vean, she'd say. We'd sit cowering inside, huddled close together until we heard it, sometimes shouts or breaking glass, and then always the sound of a car door smashing shut, and then an engine booming and tires squealing away. Once, I remember hearing the sound of gunshots. I can still remember clearly the taste of a dry mouth hanging in fear. We were afraid, always afraid, of the men who stole beer and held up stores with little black guns and folded bandanas covering their menacing faces. Criminals, criminales, bestias, beasts. Redbeard broke it down once when we were blazing. Pussies, he declared. Only chapetillos steal beer like that. Desperate high schoolers and shit. Ain't no real motherfucking criminal going to risk getting chased down by some dumbass Good Samaritan or the cops for something as stupid as a 30-pack. The real motherfuckers think before they act, I assure you, he declared diplomatically, and then taking a hit, breathed out. The real motherfucking criminals buy their beer before midnight. Post-beer run is another story. The cops have to show up and sometimes shut down the store depending on how severe the situation got. This one was in progress. I watched the Monte Carlo exhibit the telltale combo of running engine and lights off. Laughing a little, I thought of Redbeard. Just by the looks of the car, I knew he was right. What kind of pendejos would try to pull off a beer run in such a noticeable car? Híjole, I whispered, taking a hit. Either these fools want to get caught, or they just don't give a fuck. It was a shame, really. How could a regal ride like that be used as an accessory to such a mediocre crime? Even from several feet away, I could tell that whoever had put it together had shown a lot of care. That was somebody's baby. The first thing I noticed was its color, which was a very clear and brilliantly glittered shade of pearl ivory. It wasn't too lifted either. You see that mistake made a lot with these cars. Some overzealous G overlifts the rear and then it looks like a fucking beetle with its ass in the air. The tires on the Monte had class. They were small yet thick, and in the center showcased delicate gold-plated rims. No visible hydraulics or decals on it either. No gaudy details or airbrushed tetas anywhere in sight. Just my style. It was the kind of car I'd always dreamed about cruising down a boulevard on a Friday night, filled with my laughing homegirls, red lips blazing. Why would anyone with love for their ride be so fucking reckless? All right, I said out loud. I'm fucking thirsty. I slid off my hood and lightly dabbed some saliva on my forefinger to put out the joint, and then carefully placed it safely on one of the windshield wipers and walked across the street toward the sitting car. The driver's side window was open, and without too much hesitation, I stuck my head into the vehicle, peering inside. There were 5 little vatos, teenage boys, wearing expensive department store sweaters and scrawny-haired, speckled faces. They were maybe football players from the looks of their half-assed muscles, most likely junior varsity. They all looked up at me and froze. You guys gonna do a beer run? I asked. Not one of them responded. Instead, they all began looking at each other confusedly, meeting each other's darting eyes. It was obvious to me not one of these fools owned the car. The driver was about 17 and had probably borrowed it from his pops or big brother. Damn shame, if only they knew where their baby was. Look, I know you are, and frankly I don't give a fuck what you guys do. I live in this hood though, and I was on my way to the Good Time store for an orange Coke. Can you wait until I do that? If you jack the beer, they might shut down the store and call the cops, and I smell like herb, 'cause I've been blazing it. Again, no one answered me, and instead they all rested their gaze on the driver, who after a moment of hesitation met my eyes and responded with, "Okay, but don't fuck us over." "Thank you," I said. We had an agreement. I backed away from the car and headed in the direction of the store. Once inside, I went toward the back and grabbed my soda from the cooler, all the while sizing up the new evening clerk, a chubby brown-haired girl with large brown eyes framed with shaggy bangs. She had a very noticeable pair of pendulous breasts that seemed to shake nervously with every customer she rang up. A name tag spelling out Annabelle hung silently off the store's mandatory orange smock. I wondered if this was her first beer run and how she'd react to it. "You'll be all right, Annabelle," I whispered to myself silently as I paid. Those guys were pussies for sure. I felt their relief when I walked out of the store and passed in front of their car silently with my soda and last-minute decision Hershey bar. It was dark, but I could see that the guy sitting in the back right of the car walked out and slowly made a beeline towards the store. I lit my joint back up and waited, puffing excitedly. A few minutes later, there was a loud smash, and then I saw him running for the car, a 30-pack in each hand. The Monte Carlo revved and then boomed with the door swinging open, and as he threw the beer and jumped in behind it, the car took off, all bat out of hell and shit, as eager as they were. I couldn't believe those pendejos actually waited for me to buy a soda. Dumb fucks, I laughed.
Well, it's a very powerful, very raw poem, and I think it's where Chicano literature is at now in many respects. The rebelliousness, the unapologetic of where the field began, and I think you're taking us to that next step, and sort of what like Luis said, it's embedded with the corazón and the palabra, and those experiences are really the root behind lowriting, in the sense that it's our voices, it's our experiences, and this is what we're doing in the streets, in our communities, and we're all community workers, we're all activists, we're all hardworking people creating this new dialogue. So I do want to thank you. We still have some time left, but wanted just to invite you for tomorrow. We're going to be at Un Solo Soul Kitchen in Boyle Heights, on First Street, right across the Mariachi Plaza. We're gonna have additional poets, authors coming down we're gonna host a community event. So please join us, spread the word, and just want to thank you for coming today. I wanted to ask Tara if you would be so kind to share your other poem that was in the book.
Sure, of course. This is called The Way I Feel. Move it around. The Way I Feel. Shiny 67 Impala. Chrome mirroring my reflection. Black velvet welcoming my intent. Curves of steel invoking sliding caress. I feel chakras light up, dinging, pinball machine style. I stop my walk to stare and admire. My wide open smile acknowledging this work of art, puro vato heart, reminding me, reminiscent cool rays falling down, moonshine, inviting me, cruising a ride. Black derby-filled embraces on a dark, starry night. Can't help the way I feel when I see a shiny 67 Impala. Gonzalez.
And then I know a lot of people came to see Luis, so I don't know if you would like to share a piece from an excerpt.
Maybe I'll read a part of it.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to write about was my experience in Tokyo with the lowriting scene there. And you know, the thing about lowriting, like almost everything we do, it's totally not lying by borders. It's against borders. There is now a big lowriting scene in Taiwan. I met a guy who was over there, and they have a magazine. And then in Spain, there's a big lowriting scene. In Brazil, they have a big lowriting scene. In other words, there's all these places that have taken it up. So I'm just going to read the very end here because my experience in Japan was that the people were totally into it. Here's one thing I will say about the Japanese: they don't play. When they do lowriting, they do it for real. They get the cars directly from LA. You can't make them over there. So no, you got to get them from a Chicano here. They say that the harbor has all these Japanese products coming in, but what's going out is lowriders. And what's really sad is that lowriding is something that LA has created, that has given out. And I don't want to say we created. I think it's part of a whole cultura because it's all over the place. But we pretty much perfected and made it something that a lot of people can enjoy. But here's the problem. It's been criminalized, put down, has not been supported. But this is LA culture. People don't recognize there's money in it. People come from around the world to go to our barrios, and people don't give them credit. They're not going to Disneyland or Hollywood. They're coming to our neighborhood, and nobody ever gives them credit. So here the Japanese have done that. So I just want to read the end of it because you read it. There's a lot of little anecdotes about my experience there. I even have my name, Luis Rodriguez, in Japanese letters. I was interviewed by Lowrider magazine and a few other magazines, and so I have these beautiful, so I'm going to tattoo that. The Japanese letters, because I think it's really cool that they can come out. I don't know if you know, but in Japan there's 3 different languages. One is the language of the upper class that a lot of people couldn't read. And there's a language they call for the women, but actually it's for the lower class. It's a second. If you go to the train stations, you have 3 different calligraphy, whatever you call them. And then the bottom one is the one phonetic. I don't know if you know that. So my name, there's no way in Japanese to say my name, so they do at the bottom, the 3rd way, which is phonetically for them. That's how my thing works. Yeah, you learn all this stuff. So anyway, my experience in Japan is that at least at the level of culture, Chicanos can find home even in such a faraway land. This should be a right for everyone, especially in a world where being uprooted and homeless seems to be the pointed feature of our time. If I could stand next to a lowered 1940s Ford truck with magnesium rims in Tokyo, something I could have done in East LA, and still feel the same sensation of joy that such a car can bring in both countries, then I know it's time for borders to come down. Of course, this is a controversial subject. There are concerns about trade and home markets and so-called terrorism scaring most developed countries to close in on themselves. But we have seen how our divisions by race, by nations, by religion, and even gangs have led mostly to fear and violence. I imagine a world with no borders, but also where people can be their own special kind of human expressions, not homogenized, but truly unique and driven by their own innate purposes and dreams. Arigato, Japan. Thanks, or as we say in Nahuatl, Lacho Kamati, or in Spanish, gracias. Thanks for being open to me as a Chicano and poet, and for letting me know and savor your own magnificent culture and heritage. Tokyo Rifa, as we say in the barrios of East LA, meaning this place lives, demands respect, cannot be erased. Gonzalez.
And I think art captures, the struggle that we're facing, that there are forces out there that want to erase us, but what feedback have you gotten? Because obviously you're putting a portrait of our cultura, and it's definitely, there's no erasure here. There's actual agency.
Not only erase us, but just keep that negative light shined on the culture. I can't tell you how many arguments I've gotten into with people online, about what this book is and the message we're trying to get out with it. not only the, I tell people about the book Lowriting, well, where are the women in bikinis, it's like there's nothing like that, these are the women in lowriting, this is
Brain bikinis.
so
Banging.
they talk about everything they see on TV, everything they see in the movies, gang culture and all this negativity, and I go out there and shoot what I see. I talk to the people I meet. People are have been happy with what we've been doing with this book and stuff. So it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. And this book has been incredible. The people I've met since we started talking about it, and the places it's taken us.
Where does Chicano Soul go from here?
We started with this book. Well, I started taking photos before the book. Santino brought the idea to me. I was honored. Especially after what he did with Ban This, he included a couple of my poems in there, and I didn't feel like I earned a spot in there. So when he came to me with this idea, I felt a little bit more confident. Then I started seeing the poems and just honored to be in the same book with Luis here. I picked up Always Running like 20 years ago.
Right.
I was a teenager. So to be on a panel with him, to be and to share pages with Luis is amazing. And it's just to keep on and documenting, the culture. Like I said earlier, my friend was telling me, you are the storyteller. We have this responsibility to document what we see. Nobody's going to do it for you. And if they do it for you, they're going to do it the way they want to do it. But you got to go out there, and I think like it was mentioned earlier, you got to go out there in the trenches, and you got to, document and share.
You're doing a book cover for Urea.
Oh, yeah. Luis Orea, asked if I would give one of my photos to an upcoming book of his.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's amazing to me, and it's just been fun. Done some gallery shows, and like we talked about before, just picking up an iPod and just going to different car shows. Didn't think it would lead to anything like that, but and that's how I met Noelle. Noelle, reached out on Instagram and said, she invited me to do, my first show photos, and at the same time as when Santino was collecting the submissions, and I told her about it, and just the different friendships that have and different things that have like that ripple effect. It's just been amazing,
Well, this question will go for everyone here, so that we can open it up for a Q&A. What future projects do you have upcoming, that you're able to divulge, I guess, at this point? 'Cause I know you mentioned that, Robert, you have a forthcoming book.
During my treatment, I guess some people call it a journey, an unfortunate one, but I started writing, kept a blog, and Santino is putting the blog in a book form, and I guess that'll be out next year sometime, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yes, here you go. You're the boss.
I've been dragging my feet on it because it's been a rough year. What I do, it's just me. And it's in addition to having a day job and family and everything else. So I'm actually giving a talk tomorrow about how I do this and how anybody can do it if they have the drive and the desire. A lot of people think making a book is magic. It's not, but it does take a lot of Chicano Soul to put yourself into it. It takes a lot out of you. Editing a book of over 30 people is hard. But Robert, we wanted to do his story. He beat stage 4 colon cancer, and whether or not if you get diagnosed with a stage 4, that's almost a death sentence. It's a real grave diagnosis. And he kept a blog about it, and it was a very raw and honest account of what he was going through and what it was like, his ups and downs, trials and tribulations. He didn't hold anything back. It just laid his soul out there for everybody to see. And a lot of us wanted to support him while he was going through that. I sent him a couple of my books to read while he was doing chemo and whatnot. And we all just, were really rooting for him and trying to support him in every way we could. And reading his entries and stuff are really heart-wrenching and heartwarming at the same time, what he went through. And it was funny because, again, I visit bookstores a lot, and I'm always checking out, the different sections. Bookstores are very segregated. You know, I always tell people that you go to a bookstore and you'll have to search, if they have one, for the ethnic section. And if you're lucky, you'll find a half of a quote-unquote Hispanic section. You're lucky to have a shelf, maybe half a shelf. And it's usually the same, 4 or 5 books, and that's it. It blows my mind that, somebody like Lalo Alcaraz, who's a cartoonist, a Chicano cartoonist, his books are in that ethnic section, and they're not with the regular comics. They're not with Peanuts, they're not with Calvin and Hobbes. I think that's just silly. But anyway, we were talking about this idea, and I would go and look in the medical section for books on cancer. And I found that you either have very stuffy medical written by doctors, just very surgical and cold, accounts by so-and-so doctor that got a book deal, or you find the celebrity kind of book that's written by a daytime talk show or some fitness somebody. They're very bubbly, recipe books, exercise books. There's nothing out there that is just a regular, real account of here's what it's like, here's what I went through, here's my story, here's what you can expect, here's how I got through it. There's not a lot of those out there, and certainly not from a brown voice. So I think his story will appeal to a lot of people in that way because, cancer is a huge problem. It's one of the scariest words in the English language, they say. And immediately, with the internet, everybody's always, looking, to find out, what do I have or what do I do, or, and to find somebody's account where they poured everything. I mean, he didn't hold back anything on it. I've been telling Art, it's been hard to even edit sometimes, reading through it, because you go through the pain that he went through. I think it'll really appeal to people and hopefully help people, because that's what he wants to do, is help others deal with it and go through it. So that'll be next, either at the end of this year or early next year. I'm still in the process of editing it and putting the finishing touches on it. I was telling these guys next after that I'm going to do my own another of my own books, my third, and then after that, we'll see what comes up. I mean, that's one of the things that I enjoy, is publishing books that I would like to read. Lowriting is something that, if I went to a store and I saw it, I would, wow, I'm totally getting that book. I get a kick out of doing that, feeling a need for books that either don't exist, should exist. It's frustrating going to the bookstore, like I said, and you're relegated to a tiny shelf, half a shelf at that, and the choices are limited. And like I said before, if we don't change that ourselves, nobody's going to do it for us. And even if they do, they're going to put their own spin on it. These books are all homegrown. They speak from the heart. They're not. This one in particular, I'm fond of telling people. I mean, because this has been a learning process in creating these things. You learn as you go. My earlier books are very raw. I cringe finding errors and stuff. But this one, I would put this book up against any mainstream book anywhere. Any Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, any of the big 6 or the big 5 they call them. I would put this up against them, quality for quality. The only thing that I lack is the budget that they have to market their books and to push their books and to get them, the marketing and the publicity. If I had that kind of money and that kind of budget, lowriting would be, everywhere. Like Luis was talking about Tokyo, it's worldwide. It is everywhere. Our culture is all over the place, but rarely is it contributed back to where it came from. We were joking around earlier because I talked about the lack of mainstream press and support, and I got an email from a guy just today before the presentation from Switzerland, and he was asking about lowriting, and he says, how can I get a copy to Switzerland? I laughed and I looked at Art and I said, how is it that we can't get our message across in our own backyard?
LA Times books.
LA Times, mainstream press, but we can get people that know the book in Switzerland. But that's what this is all about. This is very, grassroots, the message, the positivity, the identity, it travels all over the world. Chicano Soul is worldwide, and we wanted to collect a little bit of that, a piece of that, as a tome to it. Books to me are very special. I tell a lot of people that I don't do ebooks. I don't believe in ebooks, and that sounds funky to a lot of people. I believe in tangible, handheld books that you can hold, in dog ear and write in and lend to somebody and borrow and have on your shelf, and it's a physical thing. There's no way to translate this into an ebook. It wouldn't come off the same way. You know what I mean? It's almost in the way that it's built and designed like one of these cars, with all of the heart and the energy and the soul that's in there. But it is up to us. Here we are, UCLA Chicano Resources Center Library, with copies of these physical kind of books, and it's up to us to carry that torch, to preserve the beauty and the tradition, because nobody else is going to do it if we don't do it ourselves.
And Luis, future projects or?
Well, as some people might know, I've been declared the new poet laureate of Los Angeles. But I want to go back to doing things on our own, because I believe in that. I started out doing my own press, Tia Chucha Press, and it also eventually became Tia Chucha's Culture Center bookstore. And we have a bookstore precisely because of what Santino says. These books in our community mean a lot. They buy them. We have a bookstore with a section. That's all it is about our gente. And of course, this book is there. And we created it ourselves. We did it on our own. We didn't have no backing. We didn't have no loans. I made a little bit of money with always renting, and I've decided to put it back into the community. I don't want to buy Lexus. I don't want to buy a swimming pool. I know these writers that get money and they go, I don't want any of that stuff. I want to be putting it back. So that's the same spirit that I think Santino's talking about, doing it in spite of everything.
Yes.
So to me, that's where I'm at now. With the poetry, I'm going to be doing events. I'm going to be doing readings, workshops. I'm going to try to work with as many communities as possible. I'm trying to get as many of our voices out there. In February, I'm actually going to be at the Hammer doing a Now What poetry reading. So we have more voices that are not just English or Spanish or European, but also I'm trying to get some of the other indigenous languages from Asia, from Mexico, from Central America, from other parts of the world as well. But anyway, that's one thing. I'm working with Heights, working with Watts, working with DeMar Park, going to the harbor, and of course, Pacoima and all that area. We're going to be doing a lot of things.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm always in my laboratory. I'm pumping away at new short stories as we speak. I've got about 6 that I'm about ready to start cleaning up completely and polishing. I'm actually trying to get into this sci-fi anthology that's coming up called Latina Rising. So I'm always pushing it. I'm always pushing what's coming out, and I'm trying to get in. I will find a way in. And I also have a book of poetry because I'm actually a poet, and I'm a performance poet, a Chicana performance poet. I've written a play, put it on in El Paso at Sacred Heart Church on the stage. It was beautiful. 2 one-woman shows, and sometimes when I get bored, I do stand-up comedy. Yeah, if you actually YouTube Viva Flores, you'll find one of my comedy bits or 2 of them. And so I'm just always moving around, trying to push the limits of what people think I can do, or I can actually do. And I have a book of poetry that I put together. It's called Cuatlicue Girl, and I'm shopping it around. I've sent it to a couple of presses in Cali, and I'm hoping to get a response. I'm not gonna stop. Basically, when I started, I had 1 poem. And I'm this girl in El Paso, and I can't tell you how many people have told me that I can't. I come from what's it called? It's a society of no expectation. I could have done nothing. I could have been a wife, and not that that's nothing, but I mean, I obviously always wanted to write. I always had it, but it was always taken away from me. And I remember being in high school and going and buying that book, What Color is Your Rainbow, or What Color is Your Parachute, about your careers. And I took it home and I went through all of it, and at the end it said writer. And I thought, well, how do that? Give me some, like, the job. What's the job? Because I couldn't comprehend. There was no space in my world for being an artist. I come from a working class family, first generation, very strict parents, and I was, you know, even when I started writing, I had one poem, and there was a huge a slam that was happening in El Paso with Juarez and El Paso poets, and it was being judged by the deaf poets, Amiri Baraka. And I mean, this was, I had just one poem, and then someone told me, well, there's 3 rounds, so you need to have at least 3 poems. So I only had one poem written, and I joined it, and I remember I wrote those 2 poems the 2 days before the event, the morning, crying, smoking joints, and my mom, I'm sitting at the table in the morning before the event, and my mom says, you know, mija, esas personas son profesionales. Tú nomás estás, you know, just be happy to be there. Those people are professionals. I won. I won the one poem. And I went home and I had won $200, and I put them on the table. Yo gané, mama. And it's like constant. Like, even after I got off the stage that first time, someone came up to me and said, beginner's luck, some guy, some jerk. And later, you know, someone tells me, you know, I know you think you're good. I like your stuff, you're good, but have you ever performed in California? And I said, no. I mean, I had just started writing, you know. Oh, well, over there, they're better than you. There's people better than you. And I went home and I cried. You know, I was just, and then I come to California, and I ended up performing at the 40th anniversary of the Chicano Moratorium. I'm being invited to headline with at the Mujeres de Maíz live art show, and I'm getting, you know, gigs, and I'm being featured, and I'm thinking, God, you know, we are, a lot of times, I know everybody does, but especially with Chicanas, trying to make a name for themselves and pushing art, you're gonna have, if you want to be a revolutionary, you're gonna have to fight your own family first in a lot of ways. You're gonna have to find a way out of that box, and then you get into, you find yourself in another one. And I mean, it keeps happening to me, but ultimately, it's the response that you get. Like I was telling Luis, I go back to El Paso. I'm a single mom. I have a 6-year-old daughter. Constantly, you know, just trying to get by and working on my stuff and wondering if I'm a good enough mom because I'm over here, and you know, all this stuff is going on. Well, at the same time, this is like, I'm alive right now. This is like party, Disneyland, like just everything I can imagine times 10, you know. And so I just wanted to thank you, Santino, because you just said something. Yeah. You just said they keep banning our books, so we have to keep making new ones. And not too long ago, a friend of mine said, you know, hey, you know, you're not the underdog anymore, right? Hey, what are you talking about? I'm the underdog. And she said, no, you're not the underdog. There's a little Chicana poet somewhere that no one's heard of, and she's hungrier than you, and she wants to take you out. And I think that's the point. I want there to be 1 million of them. You know, we don't make the space. You know, it's not so much that I'm going to be upset with how I grew up, because these were, my parents were just hardworking people, and we didn't have the money to buy art or to really invest in anything like that. Although I was told that I wasn't going to be able to ever leave for school. I was told that when I was like in 9th grade. You're never leaving. You're going to graduate and you're going to go to EPCC, the community college. And I was going to, I don't know, maybe be a teacher, because that's what you can be. And if you want to be more than a teacher, then you're going to be a nurse. And that's like it, right? And so you can imagine, I'm sitting here at UCLA reading a story about rolling joints. And my parents are so proud, but it's taken a lot. It's taken a lot.
Sure.
Awesome. Guess we'll pass the mic to Tara. Any future projects? that you're working on?
Well, after graduating from college and realizing that I have my BFA, I'm an artist and I'm unemployed. And how to make that work for myself. My project, what I learned in college, when I went to college, I did a lot of projects, and I feel like those projects helped me decide what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is I include poetry and visuals from photography and film to get the message out about what's going on at the border. And I did it as projects in school, so I could graduate and say that it's my life work now. And what we have going on in New Mexico is we're dealing with a lot of detainees, refugees in Artesia, New Mexico. They've been in lockdown since June. And when I found out about this through one of the lawyers, it broke my heart to be brown and to be locked away because you're brown. And these women and children are seeking asylum, and our government is breaking international law by detaining them. So, all right, what does an artist do? I was going to go up there and fast for a week and make beads. I make beads out of my poetry. But having, like Viva said, having 4 children, being a single mother, that was kind of a hard thing to figure out the dynamics. So I started involving my community and saying, what can we do? I want to know who's doing what they're doing, how they're doing it. If they're doing it effectively, we don't need to do that, but whatever is being missed, we need to cover. So we started a website called Alas Artesia, and it is a place you can go and you can find out what's being done and how to help. They need translators, so everything that's not being taken care of, I'm trying to figure out a way to take care of it, and I'm also tapping into artists and poets to do something. This is our time to use our voices and our creative visions to bring attention to these injustices and call out our government and the people behind it, which are a lot of the private for-profit prisons. So that's what my work includes. I'm doing a documentary about it. I went once to Artesia. I never thought I would be sitting here at UCLA with this amazing panel, but I never thought I'd be in an ICE facility either. Learning Spanish or trying to practice my Spanish with these women and children who are scared and trapped. And this summer, I do want to say, we can pray to be on our path all we want, and we can be taught that. But when the ancestors show up in your vision and they're looking at you like, well, why? We're here. They're here for us. But we have to walk the talk. We have to do the work. And I realized that a couple of years ago. And this summer, in my transition of graduating and being exhausted, and I will say, everybody said, oh, you kicked ass at school. I'm like, well, school kicked my ass back because I was worn out and trying to figure out what to do. And I stood in my mom's garden, and all these hummingbirds were showing up, and so I had one lens left that wasn't broken, which was a zoom lens, so I started taking photos of these hummingbirds. And I stood there for hours, and I learned a new language, which is Colibri, and I wondered what it meant. And then I found out about the women and children, and I realized they were telling me that this is what's going down. We have hummingbirds that are trapped in the middle of the desert. It's not just in New Mexico, it's in Texas. So what they do is they send the Mexicans back right away because they can, but they can't send the Central American people from Central America back because they have to figure out a way to get them back there. So, I mean, it's the conditions are dire. When your child's losing 25% of their body weight because they're eating 2 bologna sandwiches a day, and we don't collectively do something, then I feel like, then what's my purpose here? So that's the work that I'm doing, and it's called alas because that's wings. And what I'm also trying to do is always looking for funders, because I really found that word out as an artist. I'm trying to get into a lot of the refugee centers and teach them how to make beads out of their stories. so they have something to carry with them, because they're like prayer beads. That's what poetry is to me, is a prayer. So I'm trying to figure out how to get in, and people tell me why they're here and why they shouldn't be here, and none of that matters to me because they're here. Does it matter why they're here or any of the politics when they're here? When somebody's in this room trapped and they're suffering, I don't really care about any more than just trying to help them and let them know that we're here and we're on the outside. So I do want to say, I do have postcards that I brought, and if anybody would like to write a message to the women or the children, we have 2 different postcards of images that I shot this summer. And the only way we can get them to them is through the lawyers. So I get them to the lawyers, and the lawyers get them to them. These people have no hope. They are being treated like criminals, and these are our women and our children. So that's what I'm doing.
Same question about what projects are you working on now or for the future?
Every day is a project. I guess it's a good day for single moms because I guess we take on the hardest battles, right? And then some. You know, I guess that's the only way. So my motto is I don't stop. I'm fortunate enough to have a great shop that's 4 walls to not only sell products that are made with love and with our own hands, but to invite people to share their passions, and that's really just my main goal, is to keep that space open. And I was just telling my boyfriend earlier that I mean, it's never an option to quit, and right now in our community, it's the height of this word, long big word, gentrification. It's not a word that I use in my vocabulary. I'm not a victim of gentrification. On the other hand, there's this word gentrification. I don't really know. I'm just a girl who loves my culture and wants everybody else to love it just as much, whether it be my people, other people, white people, yellow people. I don't know. We're beautiful. And we have a lot to share, and in a good light, and that's my goal, is to show people that we're not the token Mexicans on the block. My family and my people have been here for years and years and years, and our existence in the height of gentrification, it can be used to our advantage. We have to show people that, to share with them the knowledge. Our people are born, we were merchants. Indigenous people had people from all over the world come. Yeah, exactly. And that's in my blood, and I'll continue to do that, for as long as I live. So at our store, we have a gallery at once a month, and that's our mission, is to promote and bring new people in and share that with everybody.
What is the name of the store?
Oh, Mi Viva, sorry. It's in Highland Park, yeah.
Same question.
Well, for me, I just picked up a couple of website projects, so I'll be working on that towards the end of the year. But something that I've been working on, or trying to sketch out and write up, are trying to bring attention to what's happening down in Mexico with the 43 students. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'd like to know is, how are we complicit in that thing? I wanted to ask Santino about that. I mean, the whole Fast and Furious thing, are we complicit involved in making that happen, that situation, a lot worse than it is? It's something that I want to express through visuals and graphics and writing, and so I'll discuss with you later, but it's something that's important to me now, and something that's been going on for too long, and it's something that's destroying us down there, and it's being paid very little attention to on this side of the border, and it's amazing. I mean, there's more things going on about these kids, not that it's any less, but what's happening in China, these kids are now, their pro-democracy movement, that's being squashed now, but this is right just less than a few hundred miles away from us, mm-hmm. and it impacts us, I think, a lot more, and there should be a lot more attention being paid to it. So that's something that I'm working on, through, again, visual graphics and some writing that I want to do. But other than that, I'm taking foodies, but I'm not doing that.
All right. Well, at this point, we'll open it up to any questions from our panel. Questions to our panel. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yes.
I just want to make a comment. Santino's mom and I were part of the crusade back in the 60s and the 70s, and we were part of a movimiento. And people like Porky and Tejerina and the Brown Berets and the crusade showed us that we could be proud as Mexicanos. You know, we didn't have to put up with those people looking at those little Mexican kids running around and stuff like that. We could be proud as Chicanos, and I am proud as a Chicano. And I'm very proud of all of you and what you're doing today, because you're continuing con el movimiento. You're going forward. You're keeping the word alive. I wish we had a bigger showing here, but by what you're doing and writing is going to reach a lot of people, like you said, in Sweden and all over the world. And we have to keep the movimiento going. And you know what? All of you, with your poetry and your writings and what you say in those books, they make me proud. I feel that warm, proud feeling again. Because you guys, Chicano, we're all Chicano. Viva. Viva. Thank you.
I feel like he's my brother because we're part of the same age. But I feel very connected with the young people are taking this up. They're doing it on their own terms. They're renewing the old movimiento, and it's got to be renewed because it can't be the way it was in the 60s, but they're bringing back what the sentiment and the heart of it is. So thank you for that, brother, because I agree with you.
And that's important because back in that time, the movimiento and how we got our message across was with this.
Yeah.
You know, what you're doing today is you're doing it from an intellectual position. You're doing it through this. And that is more powerful than this, because once you're done with this, it's done. You may hurt for a few days, but it's done. Once you do it like this, it's there forever. It's forever, and that's why you guys are awesome at what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there is a current struggle taking place right now at the LA Unified School Board. You know, the students, high school students, college students are fighting to ensure that ethnic studies, Chicano studies, Pan-African studies, Asian American studies becomes a requirement K through 12 in LAUSD. So the movimiento is still going, and I'm glad that you said that this is part of that legacy. And you know, just to maybe kind of build that conversation, but you know, the deaths of those 43 kids, right? It's a legacy from when the Spaniards came.
Sure.
You know, it's been carried on. We are seen as savages, as uncivilized, and they do with us with what they want, right? And so, like Tara said, we have to say ya basta at some point. And so we raised our fists, but we also raised our brains, our intellect. So one, thank you for coming. We'll give some time for anyone who wants to purchase the books, as well as, you know, taking photos. This will be the appropriate time. So thank you for inviting us to UCLA, and we'll see you soon.